Welcome to Talk with Tara, the podcast where we dive into the bold, the funny, and the fascinating. I'm Tara, your host, bringing you unfiltered conversations on life, love, and everything in between. Hit that follow button so you're always in the loop, and let's get started. Well, welcome back, everybody, to Talk with Tara. I'm so excited today. I have Michelle Gillette on, and we're going to be diving into how important the nervous system is when it comes to relationships. And if you've ever wondered why you may feel anxious or you just shut down during a conflict, well, Michelle is going to help us understand our painful patterns and why we keep repeating them. So this episode is going to be a really interesting download. I've been very excited about this, and it may be longer than usual because we are going to cover a number of different topics. Before we get started, our guest today, Michelle Gillette, is a functional medicine certified health coach with expertise in the nervous system regulation, attachment science, and holistic well-being. She helps high-performing individuals, couples, and leaders break unhealthy patterns and rewire their stress responses and build secure, thriving relationships. And today she's going to help us dig into the psychological side of how we show up in relationships. So welcome, Michelle.
Hi, thank you so much. This is such a fun topic.
Oh, yeah. I'm so excited to hear about you. So before we get started, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, how you got into this, and then we can get into some of the fun questions I have for you.
Well, I was originally a hedge fund executive in a high stress environment. And then I just found that being a mother was a huge calling for me. And I stopped working at the hedge fund and became full throttle mom. And my busy brain still needed to be active, and my identity needed to also embrace this new chapter. So I became a life coach, trying to help people with mind shifts, including myself. And as I moved forward with that, I found that I had clients and myself who were like, yeah, we have all these aspirations, but physiologically, maybe we don't have the energy. Maybe a lot of stress, maybe we're in the sandwich generation where we've got teenagers at home and then aging parents, So what was happening with us physiologically just caught my attention. And so I started studying the body, our nervous system, not just our thought patterns in the conscious part, but the subconscious. How does that all happen? And then I shifted into also involving relationships, because that's a longevity factor. So longevity is a emphasis of mine. And you can live longer and happier if you have great relationships, because when I would talk to people about sleep, I would say, what's keeping you up at night? Well, I'm upset about, this guy my daughter's dating, and I don't know how to communicate with her, and my relationship with my husband or my partner or anyone is keeping me up at night. So getting the relationships down and owning our part in that and navigating that became really delicious for myself as I eventually got divorced and started dating with my teenagers who are now adults and learning how to shift with all that. So it really became important for me to address old childhood patterns that were formed, that were designed to keep me safe, but then I was over correcting, using them too much in a way that was not healthy for me. And then I would help other people navigate that too. But it was a really organic, need-based development of how I got involved in all this.
Yeah. And you look at the whole mind,
Yes.
body, and spirit. When we talk about the nervous system and I think about conflict, I think about how I handle conflict or my mate handles conflict, and it's so different. One of us may be very talkative, one of us may shut down. And I'm really excited because when we talked offline about this, you're going to give our listeners key takeaways in each section that we're going to go through. And I think this is going to be really helpful to everybody out there. And it's really important to break toxic patterns. Now, are you remarried, Michelle?
I have a significant other in a very healthy relationship.
Oh, good. In a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
That's
I was
wonderful.
married for 23 years and together with somebody for 26 years. So I have
Wow.
some relationship experience under my belt.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay. Well, let's talk about relationships after the pandemic and this digital driven world. Can you tell us about that? Because let's kind of set the stage.
So what's really interesting is in this current environment, in this state of being where we currently are, where we do have a lot of political unrest and people on opposite sides, it is really a problem for a lot of people in their relationships. So it can make someone feel unsafe. And then if you also look at the dating world for people who are dating and the apps, and you don't have that neuroception where you're meeting somebody in person, you know right away, this person makes me feel safe or not. It all comes down to safety, right? And then add to it, COVID happened. And we didn't, again, get that in-person interactions, and our brains actually changed. Our tolerance levels of our nervous systems and our brains. Huberman talked about our brain actually changing after that. So I feel like it's very fair to say for almost everyone I know, we changed, and in one way or the other, and in these things. Okay. So we have our trait that is become a trait, like a personality trait that was formed because of experiences in our life that we weren't necessarily, not necessarily born that way, but like experience, what we were exposed to shaped us. Right. Now we have a state of being where the news can make us feel hypervigilant or unsafe, right? So all these factors are happening. So right now we have this opportunity to come back to our nervous system and say, okay, you need a little rest. You need some deep breaths so that I can communicate with my people, my coworkers, my loved ones, my family in a better way, because a lot of us are dysregulated. That's why right now is really a special time to be talking about the nervous system.
Well, talk a little bit about this digital dating part, people online, and how it's changing. And also, before we get into that, why is it such a need for people to be in a relationship? I'm sure you've studied this. People will say to you, be happy alone, just enjoy your alone time. You don't need a mate, love yourself first. But then we have this need to couple up. Is it our society? Is it the fairy tale things that we've seen as little girls or little boys? Or is it really a need?
It can be all of that. And here's why. Okay, so we were tribal beings. If you hear this analogy a lot, listen, hey, if you were on the Serengeti and you were left alone, you were going to die. Right. So we have built-in mechanisms from our evolution that say, oh, if somebody looks at you in a threatening way, you're threatened and you are at risk of peril, right? And we still operate from that old programming in this. We might have a soul that wants all kinds of things and can reach and feels love and all that, but we are human and we are operating from a human body. What the nervous system can help us do is kind of reprogram the messaging within our human body. So that's what's cool about it. But we are human and we did evolve in tribes. There's a lot of triggers or activations that happen when somebody ignores us or we aren't in the center, which is protective. If you look at like prey animals, they don't want to be on the outskirts of the circle. They want to get in the middle because it's safer. Pedophiles, they pick out the kids who are out and alone and don't have a crew around them, and they're the vulnerable ones, right? So we still have this want to be paired up, to be, So that's just like, we're not weaklings because we want to have closeness. We're not weak or too mushy if we love hugs. They're beautiful. So I feel like let us be fully embrace being human while we're borrowing these earth suits, let's really build a container of safety so that we can actualize and enjoy that. We have human bodies.
But what about your clients who come to you and they say, I'm not finding anyone, I'm alone? Yeah. I mean, there are the people who are alone. Like, how do you deal with maybe you're going to be alone?
And there's beautiful things about being alone too. I mean, I can tell you as I've gotten older, I need people less, or I need fewer people. It's quality over quantity. It is really I love some of my alone time. And Esther Perel will talk about the polarity of having, even in a relationship, some of your alone time. And so I was with someone yesterday and she said, do you ever get bored, being in a relationship? I'm like, this is such an active space. No, I don't. I keep myself entertained. So yes and no. Dating, if we're going to go into how do you meet someone, or if you want to talk about what's happening in the dating world and the apps, one of the challenges on the apps is, there's several of them. One of them is the constant flow of getting our mind to having such a short attention span, looking at somebody's profile, which may or may not even be accurate, right? It could be totally filtered 10 times. And then we don't, again, have that neural perception where we're feeling the body out, feeling the energy. Heart the energy will tell you that you can feel the heart of somebody, the vibes off of somebody with up to 7 feet.
Oh, wow.
Within 5 seconds, we're analyzing someone without in our subconscious, not even
without communication, just by looking at them.
And that's not happening on an app. Plus, there's a lot of, even with AI now, AI is catfishing people and finding out information and then tailoring the answers to draw in your attention, maybe your money, right? So there's all these things. By the way, there is a new app coming out called Swerve, SWERV, that is based in meeting people in person. So you identify, so just, for anyone who's sick of that kind of app. Yeah, SWERV. It's just launching barely. I just talked to the founder recently. And what I love about it is that it is allowing people to find at this location, at this event, there's 14, 30 people that fit, this age group, some of the same interests. And here they are at this Kings game, or here they are at this restaurant, right?
That's great.
And then you can go meet them in person because of all that. So yes, it's hard because of the way we're doing it. Just the quick, short attention span of next. It's it's like discarding people. And it feels even just to people like me when I was short, not on apps for very long. And when I felt yucky about discarding people. I felt kind of guilty about it.
Right.
I also did it because I was like, oh my God, that guy.
You have to.
Yeah. One more fish photo. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Yeah.
The fish photos.
The fish photo. Or the joker guy, the guy who's like, okay, we only have 5 photos. That's not the one. Or don't you have any friends? Why is everything in a mirror? Like, do you have one friend who take a photo? Like, yeah. But by the way, that is one of the things I do is I help people with their profile and I go deep into what they want. My return on that of like the how people, when I really get into what they really want and I look at their photos, it's like 300% return. Like, because we're really talking about who they are, not the manufactured version that they think they should be presenting or saying what they think they should be saying. So it is really about being genuine. And, it's a game changer. So I think people have gotten away to like gaming the system instead of really showing up as
what's the point of gaming the system? Because then you're not going to end up with the right person. Right. Exactly. Let's talk about attachment styles because I think it's really important.
Sure. So our attachment styles are often developed in early childhood, and one person can have a main style, but I will just say this one caveat. I have a main style, but I have shown up as different versions of it with different people. And we will talk about how to discern who am I, like what is my nervous system showing up as in general versus, because sometimes your nervous system is showing up in a way that is because that person, right? But so I'm right now just going to talk about the ones that how childhood experiences might shape our attachment styles and what those look like real briefly. Okay. So it's because our earliest experiences help create this blueprint, basically. Like a consistent, responsive parent, but it could be caregiver, right? Create a secure attachment. My son has a secure attachment. I mean, that kid was loved on. Everybody was reliable. He's got that. Consistent, responsive caregiving. Okay. Now, dismissive, unavailable caregivers could create avoidant attachment. And that could be, I'm not vilifying parents. I am a parent, right? But like with my daughter, I was less consistent with her because I had a son and then he eventually had some medical things and I had got an autoimmune disease and he had something going on. I was less available to her. And I'm not saying that she is avoidant attached. We don't know yet.
Yes, right.
But that could lead to somebody being avoidant attachment style. So again, not vilifying parents. I'm not vilifying myself. Those were just the circumstances. But also somebody like a parent who might have postpartum. That's not their fault. It's just like they might not be as consistently available, right? Inconsistent, unpredictable caregiving can also create anxious attachment. So if there's drugs or somebody goes into a rage because they've got a hangover or any number of things, also not always bad. It could be somebody has to work the night shift and they're exhausted all day. Like, again, there's a whole array of how that can happen. That can create an anxious attachment. So,
but Michelle, it could be somebody was just not a good parent. Like somebody could say, like, my dad beat me, and now 100%. I am avoidant. I'm scared to get close to someone. Right?
100%. The reason I'm saying the caveats is because a lot of people will avoid this because my parents were great and because they get defensive about their parents. That's actually why I'm framing it this way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I know of good parents who the kids still could, and we love our parents and all that, right? And then, so yes, but they can be bad. They could be abusive. They could be, if you look at the ACEs score of the adult adverse childhood experiences, if you have 4 of those, you might not have a secure attachment.
Right. You would be avoidant or you could be anxious.
You could be anxious or you could be disorganized. So disorganized attachment is trauma, neglect, extreme instability.
Okay.
So for instance, I had some of this at my house. I had real warmth I had a very secure attachment with my grandmother. Mm-hmm. But then we moved out when I was 5. We lived with them for 5 years, and then we moved out. And then I had a parent who died by suicide, and there was drugs. So it was inconsistent. I got some of it. I didn't get it. With one person, I got it. And sometimes with one person who was great, and the other time hungover. It wasn't consistent, right?
It wasn't consistent. But were you able to work on your attachment style?
Yes.
So that's the good news.
Okay, this is what I'm going to say. I, again, was married with someone for 26 years. I was very securely attached for almost the entire marriage until the very end. And then it was like, okay, time to switch things up for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. Now, and that is even with a disorganized attachment style. I found someone who I could trust. I'm with someone now who I absolutely 100% am secure with.
Yes.
Now, when I was dating for the last 5 years, 4 of the 5 years, there was times when I wasn't, and old patterns came up of like, oh gosh, red flag, or wow. And actually, and sometimes we will talk about this later, right? I even sabotaged myself, right? Because, this looks like inconsistent, and inconsistent means they're scary for me. So I remember somebody wonderful, actually, I broke up with them. I said, you just don't seem that involved. And you know what? I'm not pressuring anybody into anything. So we're done. And he goes, Michelle, that could have been a conversation, not a breakup. And I was like,
I've done that.
Whoa, right? And you're like,
but the guy wasn't a good guy. I think I sabotaged it because I knew deep down he wasn't a good guy. Yeah. He had a lot of trauma.
Yes. Okay. And I look back and I know this person wasn't right for me, but at the time I found out that he wasn't right for me later, but maybe my body did know that. I don't know. I just know that I will push people away if there are moments where I will own that I have decided that this isn't right for me without having a conversation with them. And now I don't do that. Now I have a conversation, and I love having the conversations now. It's hard, but I still
I wasn't having the conversation. I was like just giving the decision, like, you know what? I just can see you're not into this or whatever. So it's over.
Yeah.
And I really wouldn't give the person the time to answer because I was probably self-protecting myself.
Yeah. Okay. And that's a defensive mechanism, which is totally understandable.
Right.
Because who wants to hang out in that? Right. And
no.
Let me ask you something. Do you feel like you've done that and like one got away that you screwed up? Or do you feel like you did it because you actually were kind of foreseeing?
I think I did it because I think I do that when I know the person is just not good for me ultimately. And it's like a trauma bond and I'm trying to protect myself. And ultimately it was the right decision, but I wish I would have been able to calm my nervous system down so that I could have made the decision based on logic versus just being impetuous. I wasn't able to calm my nervous system down with this particular person.
And you're actually touching on something, because a communication about that's really respectful, because we create more injury for somebody else too when we're just like, okay, I'm down, I'm just next. Dismissed, we're just perpetuating something that we wouldn't want done to us. So sometimes having that conversation, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes they don't have the capacity. So
So
secure attachment, avoidant attachment, anxious attachment, and disorganized.
Okay, so everybody figure out your attachment style and figure out what you're attracting, right? Like, you can figure out who you're attracting as well.
Yeah, and I will say there's a free resource. I love this woman's work. Her name is Thais Gibson, Thais, and you can do for like 2 weeks. You can do all her courses about your attachment style and how to navigate them, and it's brilliant. And I think if you go beyond 2 weeks, it's $100, but it's the best $100 you can spend. I love working with that too, but I'm more one-on-one with people, like really getting in there and helping them, guide them, because not everybody wants to take 20 hours of courses
figuring out their attachment style.
Yeah. Okay. But the test is for free, and it takes 3 minutes.
How do you figure out your attachment style, and let's say your anxious attachment style, and that means that the person doesn't call you when they say they're going to call you, or you go on a date and you don't hear from them and you get really anxious and unsettled, right? You feel really dysregulate. How do you regulate your body? How do you get over that?
Yeah. So for an anxious attachment person style, somebody with that, they have a lot of fear of abandonment. Maybe they overgive because they're like people pleasers, they're trying to like earn their keep. They overthink what their partner does. They might fear rejection, even in stable relationships. They can seek constant reassurance. They can become clingy or dependent. So it's having an awareness of that would be the first thing of, oh, am I doing this? Is this a fact that they're pulling away, or is this me responding anxiously because I'm perceiving that? So in that case, that is first, number one is awareness. What am I doing that thing? And number two would be, I love doing the work by Byron Katie of like questioning, is this true? You know, she has a whole method for doing that that's really effective. If people don't want to go through the work by Byron Katie, which is super worthwhile, having those conversations with yourself and owning like, and, you know, really looking at it objectively, pulling yourself, you know, from a bird's eye view, even talking to a friend if you don't have like a therapist to talk about these kinds of things, but getting into the habit of owning what's yours. When did I first feel this way? When did I first feel this way? And is that happening again? And also like, what am I making it mean? Well, they didn't call me back right away. Some of us have really unrealistic expectations of, you know, somebody starting to date, and they're like, well, he didn't call me every single day. Well, in the beginning of a relationship, like I remember, I think it was Jillian Turecki or someone like Mark Groves had a list of like, what is reasonable to expect when you first start dating someone. It wasn't like that they should be texting you every day. And I had a conversation with a family member last night, and he was like, I don't want to be required to text somebody every day. So, but my friends who are dating, they want that text every day. Let's be playing the same board game. Right. You know, have a conversation in the beginning. It sounds like it's too soon, but like pretty soon after, like what's your expectation, especially if somebody's sleeping together? Like, what are you looking for? And what kind of communication do you like? There's ways to navigate this. For instance, a lot of times in dating, what I'll see with people is they'll go and have an amazing weekend together. This is when like a little further on into the relationship, amazing weekend together. And her oxytocin is like raging and we had so much fun. And then he's, and this is sometimes with like a release of male testosterone in various ways. He is satiated and he's like, we're great. And then Monday and Tuesday are his get shit done days at work. And he's happy and he thinks everything's great. She's like glowing on Sunday. Monday, he hasn't texted. Tuesday, he hasn't texted. Then he decides on Wednesday to text and she's like, I'm busy.
Yeah, exactly.
She was waiting. So a woman can say, isn't it interesting how that happens? I would love the text that says super busy Monday and Tuesday, but I look forward to seeing you again, or what a great weekend. The reassurance. That's not necessarily anxious attachment as a trait, or it's like that you're like, that's your personality. That's kind of like just expectations being out of line. You know, like somebody who's securely attached can really want that phone call after being so vulnerable, having a weekend with someone. So just if you've ever felt anxious doesn't necessarily make you anxiously attached as a style. It could be you're playing a game on two different board games. I don't mean to call it a game, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you have two ideas of what a car is, or just two different ideas, like how that vehicle is supposed to operate, you know?
But isn't there a way that we could just, let's say the guy, as far as the hormones, I agree with you. So the woman is oxytocin, she's bonded, and usually bond after having an orgasm, like very, very bonding. Okay?
Yeah, imagine you had a whole bunch of them.
Yeah. And then the man, he gets rid of vasopressin and his testosterone, you know, he also dopamine release, and he needs space. And then we freak out. Oh, we haven't heard. We should be hearing, right? But then we feel like, oh, it's too soon to lay those ground rules because we don't want to scare them. So you have to self-regulate.
Yeah, you have to self-regulate. Now, I'll talk about ways to self-regulate.
Yeah.
I will say, I think it's polite for the man to understand that is also her experience. And if he wants to continue to have that comfortable and beautiful of an experience where she can feel safe, it's not that hard to send the text.
No.
Or she can say, you don't have to, I understand, whatever, but don't self-abandon either. Like maybe, I don't know, like I can tell you how to breathe and to feel better about it. But I mean, I actually really only date guys who are really present. That's just my style. I like guys who are really courteous and polite and communicative and open-hearted. And that's what I want. And that's who I'll be in a relationship with. And I won't be in a relationship with the other kind of person.
I won't either.
I just
I agree.
Polite, you know, be polite.
Yeah.
So be courteous, right?
Maybe the moral is to this is that if the guy doesn't have the ability to just send you a text and say that was a lovely weekend, maybe it's not the guy for you.
Yeah. And there's also nothing wrong with a woman saying thank you if that was a big, depending upon what happened, right? I'm not going to assume every man takes a woman away to a resort or whatever. But like, if he does something nice, say thank you. Like, just be courteous. Like, how about let's not play by these, this is be a kind, courteous, grateful, appreciative person. Most people I know love feeling appreciated when they've done something nice. And, if you've spent a lovely weekend together, then, hey, that was lovely is a nice thing to hear. Because it took energy and vulnerability to be there, to show up in that weekend, to like, be there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, yeah. So, and like an avoidant attachment would have fear of intimacy and want emotional distance. So if an anxiously attached person is with an avoidant attached person, that's tough. That's going to be that's not going to last very long.
And that's usually what they attract, right?
If it does last, it's going to be uncomfortable, and probably that whoever's the anxiously attached one, their nervous system is going to be fried. And they might be used to that from childhood. Yeah,
they may be used to that from childhood. I think I used to be attracted to those kind of guys, and I've been in a relationship for a while. The person I'm with now, I feel like he has a secure attachment style, and I was dating someone, I was dating him at the same time, and I felt so safe with him. I had never felt so safe with someone before. And I was like, I really like this feeling. It felt really good. So maybe that's a good litmus test, is if you feel safe with the person, then that's a signal that it's the right person, if you're a man or a woman.
That's right. That's right. And sometimes people think that's boring because they're not used to it. And that's one of the things, like, we can self-sabotage because we're like, this is boring.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about some signs that we're self-sabotaging versus red flags in a relationship. What are the difference?
Okay. And then later we'll come back to like self-soothing techniques. Like,
yes. We have to come back to that.
This is so juicy and good. I don't want to.
We have to come back to self-soothing.
Signs of self-sabotage versus red flags in relationships. This is interesting. Some signs that your nervous system is self-sabotaging a good relationship. If you get anxious when things feel too good, you're like waiting for the other shoe to drop. So that's what my childhood brought into my grown-up life, is like, waiting for that other shoe to drop. You create distance for no reason. Like, a healthy partner makes you feel bored or trapped instead of safe. Look at that. You hyper-focus on their flaws. Like, your brain starts scanning for problems that aren't actually deal breakers. They're just like, I don't like his shirts. I don't like his haircut. I don't like that. I don't like his car, with stupid things. Like, he laughs. I don't know, whatever. I mean, I was going to say laughs too loud.
Yeah. Do we do that on an unconscious level?
We can get into the pattern on an unconscious level for sure. That's what brings us there. And then if you get in a stuck cycle of push and pull, like, you want closeness, but you panic when you get it. I've been there too. You could be self-sabotaging a good relationship. Okay. Red flags that indicate that you're in the wrong relationship might be something like you feel consistently drained, anxious, unsafe, like we were talking about. Like that, your nervous system is going to get fried. I've done that one too.
And you feel it somatically. You feel it in your body.
Yeah. I mean, I have dated somebody where he was an amazing, super doting boyfriend, but I didn't feel safe with him because I didn't feel safe in his judgment because he drank too much. And he was like, the decisions he would make when he drank. And I was like, I just can't, never, and I would tell people, we had mutual friends. I'd be like, my nervous system never settles down. And I couldn't commit, long-term to this person because I just was like, I never felt settled. Whereas I'm with someone now, I'm just like, felt safe day one. Okay. So like, you feel like you have to shrink yourself to be loved, or they create chaos or make emotional highs and lows, manipulate your nervous system inconsistently. There might be inconsistencies because somebody has works on, is a ER physician and they've got an insist, that can be hard for somebody. Right. That might not work for somebody, right? And that might be their issue, not the doctor that's doing the ER. But like, so those are some of the things. But green flags is like your partner's consistent, emotionally available, but you feel bored or anxious, like that you might be self-sabotaging.
Okay. So, you should watch out that if you're in a relationship with someone who you feel safe with, if it's not like crazy electric, you could be self-sabotaging it. You don't need to have that crazy drama-filled relationship.
You can ask yourself, did I grow up with so much chaos that makes me feel alive? Like, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. A friend of mine went to therapy, like, this is way back in the 90s. I remember she said that. She said her therapist said to her, what's wrong? That's what's wrong.
Yeah.
What's wrong? That's what's wrong. Because like, she's so used to like just that hypervigilance and waiting. And like, it's like, it was boring. It got boring.
Right. Got boring.
So, I mean, that's why I say feeling unrest, go take risks in your career, go take risks learning a new thing. It doesn't need to be in your relationship. I mean, you can have polarity and see them across the room and see them talking to somebody beautiful or whatever and feel a thing. There's healthy versions of being apart and, feeling like, oh, I better shape up a little because look at this opportunity that person has. That's kind of healthy. Like
right.
appreciating who that person is and their ability to like find another mate if they wanted to, like being aware that, you know, I guess like not taking them for granted is what I mean.
Not taking them for granted.
Awareness of that.
Yeah.
That's healthy to be like, oh, it's kind of
exactly.
like, that's why Esther Perel's also says like, you don't need to be up in each other's face all the time. Like see them in their element where they're in their stride and get turned on again by them owning their space and being amazing in that space, you know?
Right.
See you in that way. Get that jolt, right?
Yeah. But if you're getting bored because the guy's too loving and doting on you, then you need to look at that.
Yeah. But you know, and then some people it's just not going to work for because they're too avoidant and it's going to feel claustrophobic. Yeah.
And what do? What if you still want the relationship? You tell someone like I'm avoidant and I need a little space in this relationship, but you can be transparent.
Some people don't show up as their best selves when they really like, some people don't feel safe with a lot of touch.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that it might not be the right person for them because that's really not their love language, right? You can't say that everybody needs to change to a secure attachment style and everybody should like somebody doting on you because sometimes it is too much. Sometimes it's smothering. Sometimes it's like, okay, like I'm whole and I'm good and you're infringing on like my peace. That doesn't make you avoidant. That might be you're securely attached. You might be on maybe somebody who's very doting, but they might be anxiously attached and you might be, okay, let's simmer down. Like you need to calm down a little bit. And I need to communicate better about my boundaries in a gentle, kind, appreciative way instead of waiting until I'm angry.
Right, exactly.
And then
don't fight when you're angry.
Yeah. And also though, Tara, the thing is like sometimes we say things to people who are like very enthusiastic and they don't hear and they don't listen to your boundaries. Boundaries are big with me. I just talked to a girlfriend of mine who's a therapist and she's talking and she's had 3 conversations with this guy and he still can't contain it. And she's like, this doesn't work because my boundaries aren't being respected about just wanting to go slower, you know?
Right.
So sometimes just because somebody's loving doesn't mean they're right.
Okay. Either. I have a question about boundaries and self-abandoning. What is the difference between self-abandoning and compromising?
I think it's about picking your battles. When somebody is, especially they've gotten avoidant, it feels threatening when you're asked to compromise too much because you're afraid. It's this feeling of being smothered by somebody else's attention and not me. So I would say, this is a great lead in into the tools. You are feeling dysregulated in that moment. And then I would say that's a good time to get your nervous system regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Get your nervous system regulated and you're articulating it in a kind, calm way before getting mad.
Okay, let me give you an example. This is a good example. So I was on a trip with my boyfriend in the South and we were checking out this town and we didn't have much time. And I said, I'm hungry. And then he's like, well, not now. Let's keep going. And I'm like, I was really on empty, right? And I didn't want to keep going. Like I saw this little taco place. I wanted to grab a taco just before, because we had a couple hours before dinner, just so I'd have something in my stomach so I could keep, because we were walking like a lot of miles. So, and he's like, no, let's keep going. And then he found this other place and I'm like, no, I don't want to go do a sit down. I just wanted something quick so we could keep walking. And he didn't listen to what I wanted, and then he said something like, he pushed it to what he wanted. And I thought, am I self-abandoning myself or am I not being flexible?
I think that could go either way. But I would say if that were me in my current relationship, I would have said, no, this is what I need right now. Like, I don't want to be hangry and cranky with you.
Right.
This is what I need right now. So I'm going to get this and then I'll go sit with you at the restaurant. Like that's a compromise, right?
Okay. That's a compromise.
Yeah. Because compromises are fine. But when you know yourself, right? If I'm in an environment that's way too loud, I know that I'm going to get so much more dysregulated. That's not going to be good for either one of us. That's self-care at that point. For me to be, if I'm in an area that's really perfumey, I don't do well with a lot of perfume. I'm going to tank. That's self-care. But if it's like, I'm sitting through somebody's work dinner and it's cold and I don't really like it, I'm going to ask him to give me his jacket. And if that doesn't work, like I'll sit there a little bit longer. It's how bad is it on a 1 to 10?
Right. Okay. Yeah. I guess.
But come up with a solution maybe, or communicate. I think so much of it can be said so nicely. And I'm working on this because I might say something a couple of times. If I'm not listened to, I'll say something nice twice. And then the third time, it's not that nice.
I know. Well, I was like, I'm really I did say that. I said, I'm going to get a little angry if I don't get something soon. We finally found something, but it was like, I felt bad. Like maybe I didn't sit down at the restaurant. I wasn't compromising. And I'm always checking myself. Am I being too, controlling or bossy? I don't want to self-abandon myself, but at the same time, I know what I need. So it's hard.
A great conversation. I think it's a great conversation so they can see how you really feel. Let me ask you this. Do you ever sandwich your needs into two things? Like, I mean, not in this case.
Give me an example.
Okay. Yeah. So, are you good at like stating what you need? Because a lot of people aren't stating what they need. So what I have done a lot, and I did this in my marriage, would I'd be like, I'm making pot roast for dinner, and hey, can you bring the garbage cans in? And by the way, we're going out with Tara on Friday night.
Yeah. Oh, no, I don't know. Yeah.
I mushed the you need to do something for me thing. And then later, you didn't bring in the garbage cans. I asked you. I never asked you to do anything. And I'd be like, I know that he didn't want to bring in those garbage cans because it was football night, right?
Right.
So, but I sandwiched it between two nice things. Or you're saying something, oh, by the way, I'm not going to go to your parents' house for that dinner. Like something that's going to be like uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's the sandwich thing. It's sometimes when you're delivering bad news in between two good things. Now with men, they want linear. And I have to say, this is important for me. And so this is what I'll do with my partner now. I'll be like, I learned this through Martha Beck coaching. She would call it a marmoset moment. Like a marmoset is like, you can't not look in the bag because the marmoset doesn't have any ability to like, if there's a bag there, it has to open the bag. It's like, you can't contain it. Like, or she says brackets up, which is a like legal document. Like this is important, the brackets. Right. So I might say brackets up. I need to do this more, actually. I said that I was going to do it, and I probably did it twice. I'm going to do it all the time now. But it's like brackets up. When I come home from a dinner late at night, I want to be able to park in the driveway and not walk 4 cars away in the rain.
Right.
Like, leave a space for me in the, So yes. I need to have a brackets up conversation about like that. Because when it's late at night and I'm coming back and there's no park,
Right.
Yeah. So
say what's important to you. And just don't sandwich it. Just say what's important.
Yeah.
To you.
Yeah. Just be aware of how you're communicating. And when we ask men to do something for us in a nice way, they love doing it mostly. Like not
of course,
always, but the ones I like do.
I agree.
Yeah, because they want really opportunities, good. But when I was dating, I had on my dating profile, have an operating manual, will share. And they were like, oh my God, the comments I got were like, crazy.
Oh, really? That's great.
Yes, somebody who like knows what she wants and can tell me. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I can tell you.
That's so great.
I like to tell you nicely instead of in a bitchy tone.
Right. Just say it nicely. Yeah, exactly.
By the way, we're not always going to get what we want when we say it. So that's the other thing is sometimes it's like, if you're not used to asking for what you want, especially if you grew up in a household where you weren't supposed to have needs because it was really inconvenient and they didn't have capacity for your needs to be able to finally, when you're so independent and self-sufficient to ask for something and then you don't get it, that's World War III. So owning, am I communicating clearly? Do they know it's important to me? Owning that part of it. And then if like, they're just going to ignore you, then that's a conversation. But Terry Real, who coaches a lot of men, he's great at like a lot of grandiose men and like just helps men communicate more. He says, there's no reason for harshness in a relationship, for harsh words. I didn't grow up like that. I saw harsh words and loud voices, right? So, for me, remembering that and thinking like, let's operate at a soft love, like this loving, it's so much better when I can do it, which is not sometimes.
Well, I watched this Oprah thing with someone who is a famous relationship person, and he said that you really don't have the right to ask for things. So what you could do is in a relationship, you can say, I have a request. So we use that in our relationship. I have a request. Would you mind blah, blah, blah? And then I know what he wants and he knows what I want. And maybe that day when I was hungry, I should have said it that way. And I didn't. I was like, I'm hungry. I want to eat now.
Yeah.
And I don't think that works.
I'd love to know who that was.
I have to look it up and tell you. But
that's great.
Yeah. Like he was telling Oprah when her boyfriend Stedman puts all the papers on the ground and just leaves them there. And she keeps saying, can you pick up the papers? Can you pick up the papers? And he doesn't do it. Can she get really angry? Doesn't she have the right? And he said, no, not really. You don't.
Right. He wants her to give her the man agency to be like, oh, this is my decision to pick up the papers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The agency.
Right.
Yeah. Same with dealing with grown kids. Like, boy, if they need agency. I want agency. I don't want somebody deciding what I'm doing with my time.
That's true. So she says you could tell your boyfriend, I have a request. Would you mind picking up the papers when you're done reading them?
Yeah.
And then they can say yes or no.
Yeah. That's good.
So that's my advice to you listeners, my Oprah advice. Okay, so let's get into some practical tools for regulating your system. So let's say you are on the trip with your boyfriend and you're hungry and he's not wanting to go right now and you're starting to feel a little bit angry. How do you regulate your system? What are some tricks and tips?
Okay. Let's not use hunger because hunger is like a whole other thing.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, I would say deep breathing exercises. I do these all day long. I am so noisy in this house. We live together, and I am just like, and my grandmother used to do this too. I'll just go, like this deep breath and then a deep exhale. And he laughs so hard because he's like, you're so noisy. I'm like, I am. And in yoga, I'm the one doing the loudest ha breaths because it's such relief. Now, if you're at the grocery store, everyone looks like you might want to do that quietly because you're totally impatient and you're a horrible person. I don't really care if you think I'm a horrible person. I'm just breathing, but you can do it quietly if you're at DMV or whatever. And you're not trying to create animosity. They don't understand what you're thinking. It's as simple as breathing into your nose and breathing out longer. That's one of them. There's all.
What does it do, Michelle? Tell people what breathing does.
Your vagus nerve, and you activating your vagus nerve can put you into your parasympathetic versus your sympathetic, which is the most, I don't know who decided on those names. Sympathetic sounds like it would be really nice. It's the fight or flight. That's not the one. Parasympathetic. The only way I could remember it when I was first learning it was that I thought of somebody I love parachuting down to be para is next to, like parallel.
Okay.
I thought of somebody parachuting down, my grandma or my Springer Spaniel, coming down and being like, I got you. I'm right here. And eventually I learned that I could parachute down for myself and be with me, side by like, let's do this together. Let's co-regulate. Let's just like calm down, right? Parasympathetic is like, it's your rest and digest. It's where you get higher thinking. It's tend and befriend. It's the place that you want to go back to. It doesn't mean you need to live there. You wouldn't be able to like run from, somebody bad guy if you were always in your parasympathetic. You need your sympathetic also. You need that. That's safe. However, we're in that one too often. So we can use breathing exercises as just one way. There's gargling, there's chanting. A lot of people that are like, go to church, like they're singing together. Singing can kind of like, it's the vibration. I use a device called the Sensate. I absolutely love it. It's like an egg shape and it vibrates on my chest. And then in my earbuds, it kind of vibrates and has music. I will fall asleep. I'll get a 20-minute nap and I will go into deep rest and relaxation and parasympathetic. For me, I don't know how clients have used it. They like it too, but that's one thing that works for me. But there's so many things that are free. Mm-hmm. You can do things like this.
Mm-hmm. She's hugging herself in case we're
I'm hugging. Yeah, gargling, which is funny. Cold exposure, something like splashing water on your face can do it. Yeah, and also
change you.
Yeah, and then it's like a reset.
Reset.
Also, one thing that I learned from Daniel Amen, because I took I'm a brain health coach also, and he would talk a lot about this of your nervous system, was putting your hands around, like, how sometimes just holding a warm cup of tea.
Mm-hmm. I love doing that.
Right? Mm-hmm. It can calm us.
Mm-hmm. I do that a lot.
Yeah.
So, I didn't realize I was doing that.
Yeah. So there's things like that. There's a lot. If anyone wants to chat GPT vagus nerve activation, there's a whole litany of things people can do. But my easiest one that I do that's free and I just do everywhere is my breathing. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole bunch of different breathing exercises. There's also things like stimulating the inside of your ear. I love something called the emotional freedom technique. That takes a little more time to learn, but EFT, it's tapping. I don't know if you've ever saw the whole tapping thing.
I have, yeah.
So I was exposed to that for years and it didn't mean much to me. And then a friend of mine, Lean, Mojas, she's a therapist. I did it with her. She offers once a month a free class and then she's pretty booked up, but she's so good at it. And it's like reframing thoughts. And I don't know, that one really works for me too. So there's a lot of things. People can find what's right for them.
What about journaling?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, that really does. And also taking a walk with a friend is great.
Or by yourself?
Yes.
Nature?
Yes. Yeah. So
nature bathing?
Absolutely. Grounding. Sanjay Gupta. So he said that walking and talking with a friend is one of the best pieces of health advice he can give to anybody. Because think about it, it's repetitive motion. So it's almost like a meditation. You're breathing because you're breathing, and you're also connecting. And it's not just getting together and complaining. You have support and you're in nature. And I will say that I've only had any depression once, and it was after COVID, and it just did something to my brain inflammation. And I remember wanting to punch anyone in the throat who said something like to me that was dumb, which was like, get outside, which is I've been telling you 15 years, right? It was one of the only things that really got me out of it. I had to be in that depth of despair and actually force myself outside and then be like, hi, the neighbor. And I was like, oh my God, cute dog. Hi. Oh, the other neighbor. Oh, look how cute they are, that couple together. It actually did pull me out of it. And it was getting out, and it's reconnecting, because back to relationships, we need people.
We do. We do need people.
We have to have a sense of belonging and community. And it's to me, I grew up in the Greek church. That's how I'm mutual friends with our friend Chrissy Jeeves. Like, our grandparents were friends. Talk about wonderful. Community. There, like 100 years ago, our grandparents were friends. I grew up in that, around people. It's like community, right?
Yes.
Community. So if you grow up around that, we had people at the house all the time. I would sit around with all the elderly ladies making Greek cookies, and people and support. And we've gotten away from that village.
Yes. Yeah. We need a village. It takes a village. It does. Yeah. So one of the things that we were talking about offline, if you need to help your relationship, is, Oprah I just noticed on her Instagram, she's doing a podcast on psychedelics with Michael Pollan. And I just recently did a podcast with a psychedelics expert. She sits with people. I didn't post it yet because it's a very controversial subject. And if you do decide to do psychedelics, you definitely should do it under the guidance of an expert. Yeah. But what do you think of psychedelics today and how they are helping people who have PTSD and severe nervous system issues? And not only that, depression and relationships, like helping couples in their relationships. MDMA is supposed to be one of the ways that people, reconnect.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because first of all, again, I'm not referring to recreational drug use. I don't do that. And I don't think that it's wise. I think it needs to be done ethically with somebody who's going to screen you, who's going to do work around the integration of, why are you there? What do you want to work out? That type of thing. You might get into a session and find that it ends up being something else. And I can explain to you one that I had. I actually have done it, and I will tell you it was like 30 years of therapy.
Wow.
It was a block. I mean, I am 58 years old, and I had
my God, you're gorgeous.
Thanks.
Can't believe it.
I do longevity work. So
wow, gorgeous. You need to see her. You need to go see Michelle if you want to look like her. You're beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can't believe you're 58.
58. And some of that was letting go of some of these old limiting beliefs. And some of them were so stuck. And what psychedelic assisted therapy did with a therapist, with integration, with post work, was it took me out of the groove of locked in limiting belief, and it just blew it into smithereens. And
so you had no more limiting beliefs. You got rid of them.
Yeah.
They were holding you back.
Yeah. Do you want to know what it was?
Yeah, I'd love to know some of your limiting beliefs.
It's super personal, but I will share it. No, I will. So when I was a baby, we moved in with my grandparents, and I'd fall asleep every night on my grandfather's chest. And he was like my father figure. My father was in and out, and then died when I was 13. So he was my consistent male figure. As I got older and I started dating and was around, I started getting a lot of attention in my teen years from men.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere along the line, I got the messaging that I wasn't complete without being in it. Like, I could go and have a great career, which I did. I put myself through college and went to UCLA. I was an art history major, and I ended up being the senior VP of a hedge fund. Like, I worked my ass off, which is like not a normal trajectory, right? I had to learn have dyscalculia, and I ended up working on a trading floor. And it was so much work, right?
Wow.
And even though I was creating all these things for myself and so independent and doing all these things, I always felt like, because we're talking about pair bonding and all that, right? That I really wasn't complete without a man.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of women feel that way.
Yeah,
a lot of women feel that way.
But for me, it was
big void,
a driver. like it didn't matter what else I had done, that needed to be there. And that wasn't really feeling whole and complete on my own without that.
Right.
So I did a ketamine assisted therapy after I got divorced, and I had a couple relationships, and I was like, why am I so preoccupied with this? I have other things to do. I have all these other things that I want to accomplish in life, but I keep focusing on this relationship where like my nervous system was going off and like it should have been, but it was taking up too much of my energy. So I went and I called this therapist, and we did all the pre-work and a lot of screening. Are you right for this? And which is like, I believe in, I want to be safe and I want other people to do it safely. And I went in there like, help me let go of this because it's sabotaging. I'm sabotaging myself, making that the focus when I've got a whole life to live here and I got to work and do all these things, Yeah. So I went in, and within like seconds of being in this journey, the voice of my grandfather came in, like his voice. And he said, baby, when you were little, you laid on my chest every night. And you kind of got misguided here because you think that when you lay your head on a man's chest, that they're going to love you and take care of you in a way that a grandfather would or your grandparents would. And they don't know you yet, and you don't know them.
Yeah.
And you got to quit giving all that power away.
I love
you got to
that.
love yourself that way. And a grandparent's love is different than a romantic love. You kind of just said it shorter, but I was like, and I was like, oh my God. And it released me. It released me. And you know what? After that, I would say that I kind of overcorrected and was like, I don't need anyone, and then I'd be like, I don't need you. And I don't need you. Like, So I overcorrected, but I really don't have that frequency anymore. It's a wanting, needing is a lower level frequency.
Yes.
Because I am not abundant enough. It's lack. And feeling abundant of like, I'm abundant without that, with or without that.
Yeah.
So I was whole. I came out of there whole.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
I was 56 years old.
Jeez.
So I came out whole. I had another one where I came in with anxiety, a different one, which was also therapy assisted. Pre-work, I went in with like, I got some anxiety going on. I got a lot of anxiety. And what I realized was the anxiety with like instantaneously almost doing the work. Because I am a super processor. Like I think really quick.
Yeah, you're very intelligent. I can tell
wellness and stuff a lot. So I'm not going to say that it's going to be this quick for everybody. Right. But it seems like it really does unlock people who don't even think like I do, right? Like in my experience, this is how quickly it happened though. Right away, what I thought was anxiety, I realized was shame. I was carrying shame about taking longer to bounce back after my divorce, even though everyone held me up like, wow, you're the best divorced person I know. You have an amicable divorce, you're dating, you've got all this, things going on. But I think after COVID and all these things, I just felt like I felt kind of like nervous system was fried. And I just wasn't like everything had kind of like compressed and like this stress of maybe also hormonal changes were happening too.
Yeah, hormonal changes, transformation, like divorce, COVID, everything.
And I thought I was feeling shameful about not being that person who's a go, do, be faster, better, stronger, because I was letting myself actually heal. And what that anxiety was shame. And that shame was was transformed into this message of, no, you are doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Your expectations are out of whack. You've had a life of running on this hamster wheel, and you're sitting still for the first time, and you're letting yourself heal in the way that you need to, and the way you need to be there with your children, and the way that you need to be there for yourself, finally slowing down. And it's not been easy, but you're doing exactly at the pace you're supposed to. And that shame turned into dignity. So much dignity about this beautiful. Is an expensive way to do it.
Yeah.
Waiting this long to I'm not the person who should go be the senior VP of a hedge fund right now. I should be at a firm in wellness capacity, but I don't going back and trying to do that again isn't the right thing. And so comparing myself to some 25-year-old who is, has a different mindset, a different value system
totally
is dumb.
Right.
And so what happened is I came in with anxiety, realized it was shame. It turned into dignity. And this was I walked out of there like so proud of myself for breaking the cycles with my kids of violence, breaking the cycles of addiction, breaking the cycle of suicidal ideation. There was a lot of cycles broken. And in this little body that I was able to do that. And my kids are so proud of me. And I just like let myself seep into that I did that, and I could have pride, and I could be happy with myself. Doesn't mean I don't go back sometimes and go, okay, like,
right,
this didn't happen and that didn't happen on my, and what I also realized after that, because the work doesn't stop necessarily when you leave the session, it keeps going. And what I realized recently is Chronos on a watch, the time we have in this human world, is one thing, but your soul is on, like, there's all kinds of things about how many lives did you have, whatever. It's not on the same clock. That's timeless stuff. And what I've been doing is a little bit more like, it's going to sound woo to people who don't think this way, but like, this is about generational trauma ending.
It is epigenetics. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what's happened here. And so I went in just fried, and I came out like, I felt like
wow, amazing.
It's amazing. And so that was.
You think that was from your higher self, those messages, or from like some other plane?
Well,
I'm very woo-woo, so.
Very oneness, love, and self-compassion. What happens is with the psychedelics is it helps people rewire the brain. And in a way that brings them back to love and oneness kind of thing. And it's going to be different for different people, but there's a lot of talk about, a lot of people end up feeling like a lot of self-forgiveness. And when you forgive yourself, you can forgive other people too.
Yes, exactly.
And that's where it starts. Wow. So for me, that it's really been worthwhile. I don't overdo it. Like I'm not somebody who uses it like a crutch. I continue to do my work. Again, I can't stress how much I really want people to understand to do it with a therapist who's going to assess suitability. Because it's not right for anybody. There's some people who don't have the right brain chemistry to be doing it.
Right. So be careful. And
be careful. Find somebody reputable. Yeah. I'm not advocating for anyone to do it. This is entertainment.
This she did for herself. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I usually give a disclaimer, but there was kind of a little side topic we were going to talk about, because it is it is a regulating tool. But the disclaimer is, this is an podcast. This is for entertainment purposes, and we are not condoning this. And if you do decide to investigate this, look for a licensed professional who can help you, especially if you have any kind of mental health issues.
Yep. Yeah. Got Dr. Gabor Mate. I'm going to read this actually because I don't want to misquote him, but he says, trauma isn't what happens to you, it's what happens inside you. Psychedelics can help us complete the healing process our nervous system never got to finish. As Sarah Perel says on psychedelics and relationships, psychedelics help us move beyond our defenses and see our partners and ourselves with fresh eyes. Love requires risk, and healing the nervous system allows us to take those risks with trust instead of fear. That's what it can help people do when it's done with psychedelic therapy.
So, Michelle, I think that should be one of your next career moves. I think
I'm talking about
amazing. Amazing.
No, I'm in talks. I'm in talks about it.
Yeah, you would be so good because now you really understand the benefits. But tell our listeners before we close, this has been so wonderful, this discussion. What are if I come to you for longevity, for relationship coaching, give us an idea of what it looks like going through a coaching program with you.
So I meet people where they are. So somebody might come in wanting to work on their sleep, but when we end, that might be all they want. Like science, tell me some tools. Oh, we find out they've been taking vitamin D right before bed. That doesn't work. And, alcohol at night doesn't work for them, whatever. We navigate that. There are other people who want to come in. We start talking about why they aren't sleeping. Maybe they want to redo their profile, and maybe they want to lose 15 pounds before their reunion. I don't judge what somebody wants to do. I help them find a path to do it within their own bio individuality, like what really works for them. So if I'm working on somebody's, sleep and they've got 5 dogs on the bed and the dog wakes them up, they got to have a conversation with their partner about the dogs. Right. Or sleep in another room, or take a nap. We got to look at it. We got to problem solve. Right. I'm very pragmatic, but warm. And I use humor when when it's something warranted.
Yes.
And I think what the comments I get, because I've worked with, I talk to people who are in the NFL or, and I do work with a lot of men.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Such a girl's girl. So I was raised with aunts and grandmas and ladies and and then worked on a trading floor and have stepbrothers and brothers. So I'm really a foot in both worlds of
masculine and feminine.
Both. Yeah, very much so. I contain masculine and feminine, and I'm pretty balanced in that way. So I meet them where they are and like what they want to do. So somebody might be, not often, but usually they could be like a one and done of somebody. Let me just redo your profile. Maybe that's 2 sessions or something like that. But somebody else is, for a year, it might be like, working on their brain health. So it really is, what does somebody want to achieve? And I think what makes it work is helping them implement.
Mm-hmm.
You can go on ChatGPT and find a whole program.
Right.
How do you implement it into your life? How are you going to change your habits? And talking about how are you going to change your habits to implement, right?
Yes.
You learn something, you read a book, and then 2 weeks later, you're like, yeah, you're still eating the chips on the sofa. And,
right. Exactly.
How, and I also don't come to this, like, I don't consider myself an expert in anything in the whole world except for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a lot of information, and I'm a conduit to a lot of information. And I'm
I can tell.
good at synthesizing and reading people, because I did have hypervigilance growing up. So I can look at somebody and go, let me ask you this question, this open-ended question, and see where this thread goes, what about this pattern, and that kind of thing. But I can contain it to really one topic, or we can go holistically into your life, or it can be just about dating, coaching, whatever. I'm pretty well versed in that.
That's great. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And let's, one of the things I wanted to do, which I haven't done in the past, is go through these tips that Michelle actually wrote for us down. So one tip is recognizing your attachment style is the first step to healing, fostering secure connections. I love that tip. We're going to leave people with that tip. Another tip is reflect on your childhood relational. Do they mirror your adult relationships? So take some time and look at what your childhood patterns were like and see if you're falling into the same things again. That's another thing Michelle recommends. And then, has my nervous system been more reactive, anxious, or avoidant in relationships since the pandemic? What external stressors may be influencing my connection patterns? I like that. So look at that. Like, how have you changed since the pandemic? Because it did affect a lot of people. And let's see, I think I had one more tip. And remember that to use some of those breathing techniques and journaling and learning how to really regulate your nervous system when you are feeling dysregulated and you're feeling like your stomach tightening up, that breathing that Michelle went through can really help you. So with that, thank you so much, Michelle, for all those tips you left us with. That was really great. And I can't wait to have another chat with you in the near future, I hope.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. I really love the topic. I love how curious you are and that you've created this.
Thanks. And Michelle, how do people get a hold of you? That's the most important thing. I forgot. I'll also put in the show notes.
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn is the most organized place. My email kind of gets flooded.
Okay.
LinkedIn
Michelle Gillette.
Is a great place. Michelle Gillette, FMCHC there's a couple of Michelle Gillettes there. So might show up as Michelle Day Gillette or Michelle Gillette. If you do Michelle Gillette, Gillett, FMCHC, which means functional medicine certified health coach.
That's great.
Yeah, then that's probably the easiest way to reach me. I'm on Instagram. I do write quite a bit on Instagram. I got a lot of tips on Instagram. Lately, they've been a lot about relationships, but it can be about, diet, exercise, thought pattern.
They could direct message you. What's your Instagram?
Michelle Gillette _
Okay.
Yeah.
Michelle Gillette _
Yeah,
so follow Michelle her.
7 years worth of tips on there.
Oh, that's great. So follow her on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram too. And tune in next time. Thank you so much. Have a great day, Michelle.
I'll give you my link for the Sensate, that vagus nerve.
Oh, yes, please. I could put it in the show notes. That would be great. Thanks a lot. This has been great. Thanks for listening to Talk with Tara. If you love today's episode, follow the show and share it with a friend. Stay tuned. There's so much more to talk about. See you next time.